Australia is licking its wounds after the men's cricket team stumbled against India in the first test at Perth. They crumbled to a humiliating loss, a huge margin of just a little less than 300 runs, and it came about on day 4 of the test. I'll come to this in just a bit, but to give you a bit of context, let's look at what the media said. The Australian media did not hold back. They have been brutal and harsh, and they dished that out to the Aussie cricket team this time. The Sydney Morning Herald called the test a sight of one-way traffic, saying the team was not prepared and questioned the mental aptitude of the Australian team, saying Australia that prides itself on being composite and clear thinking right through were put under trouble. They looked lost throughout, especially from the moment Jasprit Bumrah destroyed their top order on the first evening of the game. That's what I had termed to be the turning point of the match too. His searing spell off the blocks, a fitting response to 150. Herald Sun called it pathetic humiliation. Others termed it a reality check dealt to the Aussies with a monster loss such as this one. The Sydney Morning Herald lauded the Indian batters, particularly Yashasvi Jaiswal and Jasprit Bumrah, who have given the Aussie nightmares. Fox Sports, of course, said this was ominous signs of things to come in this series. The remarks have been scathing, and what has not helped Australia is the comment that one of their players, their bowlers, in fact, Josh Hazlewood, made at the end of day 3 of the test.
You probably have to ask one of the batters that question. I'm probably looking mostly towards the next test.
The match wasn't over just then. It wasn't concluded. It was still day 3. Yes, they were staring at defeat, imminent defeat at that, chasing a massive target there. But those exactly were the words Hazlewood decided to make, a statement that has not been taken too kindly to, especially by former Aussie cricketer Adam Gilchrist, who responded saying this looks like a rift in the Australian team dressing room.
I wonder if there's a divide in Andrew McDonald's team between the batters and bowlers.
Adam Gilchrist clearly saying that there could be something amiss, especially when a bowler comes and makes that kind of a statement, pointing fingers at the batting that let them down. And Michael Vaughan, former England cricketer, isn't one to also hold back when there is a raging debate that he can fan further.
Publicly, I've never heard an Australian divide the camp into batters and bowlers like that. It's unusual to hear an Australian cricketer publicly shift focus to the next game before this one is finished.
Yes, Vaughan really summing that up very well. Two things really stand out in that statement that Hazlewood made. One, of course, almost seemingly pointing fingers at the batters for having let them down in this test. And then saying, even before the test match concluded, that he was already thinking about the second test. Now, of course, Hazlewood may have made that statement and that kind of a statement out of some level of frustration. It's understandable, but that definitely is not the sort of response you'd expect while the team is clearly staring at defeat. Australia has not been in such a position ever, where they have been handed a loss, and right there at the start itself, despite dismissing the opposition for 150 on the very first day. But I guess that's what the difference really was. While Josh Hazlewood made a flippant remark there saying these questions should have been addressed to the batters of his team and not him, whose role is just to bowl. This is what Jasprit Bumrah, the captain who was leading India for that test, ended up saying at the end of that test.
The message was, we will be nice and disciplined, and we will make run making as difficult as we can, because that is what has worked in the past over here as well. When we are able to do that, that gives us a lot of success. So that was the message that was passed.
Be nice, be disciplined. That's what Bumrah says. He truly stepped up as a leader and did not make it about the low score that his team, the batters, made. He led from the front and they played like a perfect unit. In fact, safe to say it was his inspiring spell on the first day that would have fired up the Indian team to put on one of the best shows by batters at Perth. Inspired a youngster to take guard and take the attack to the Aussies in Yashasvi Jaiswal. Inspired a man under fire to finally shut his critics in Virat Kohli. That's what a winning team looks like. Pat Cummins, on the other hand, at the end of the test on day 4, of course, did the due diligence by rubbishing all claims of a possible divide in his camp between the batters and the bowlers, saying there was no problem, and this was in fact one of the tightest units he's ever been a part of in Australia. Now, the Adelaide test is a while away, and guess what? Reports say Australia will remain unchanged for the day and night test and for that second test. They are determined to make a comeback in this series with the personnel they have. But one thing I can say with certainty, only one team has truly shown the spirit of the game to fight and play hard, and that's not been Australia.